So while I was gonna try to like do this, and I ended up not using what I recorded before. I was trying to get these clothes sorted while doing this video, and it kind of wasn't working. So I'm just gonna wait on sorting through these clothes. Like I said, I'm trying to get rid of half of it and get it all fitted into the dresser over here that you can't see because it's past the camera line. But I'm not gonna turn the camera right now because today's question is: will you be happy being a nomad? Whether that's living in a van, whether that's living in an RV, whatever. Well, the truth is, I can't tell you that. I can only tell you that it comes with its own measure of challenges, such as where are you going to park it, and if that depends. Do you get are you in an RV? Are you in a van? Do you have a high top? Do you not have a high top? Because if you have a high top or anything on your roof, some parking garages suddenly are off the table. So you couldn't even park in a parking garage, even if it had an overnight parking. But is that something you even want to do? Like, there's a lot of things to consider of, do you want to deal with that? And sometimes you don't really know how much something is going to affect you until you're in it. And once I was forced into living into a car, I realized it wasn't that big a deal to me. Like, one of the things people get really frustrated about is parking. Parking is so easy. Like, literally, and maybe it's just because I'm in a van, but like, I've seen Gus in a Bus and Chrome and other people just park. You just park in a legal parking space, and you don't be a rude jerk. Like, don't park in front of somebody's neighborhood where obviously they're going to wonder, what's this weird car that's taking up residence in front of my house? Like, don't do that. But literally, almost every legal parking spot in the world is an option if you're in a car that fits in with most residential vehicles. And then you just park and you quietly go to sleep, and then you leave in the morning and nobody cares. Like, I don't understand all this frustration over parking, or like thinking like the only place you can park is Walmart. Like, that's not true. I've parked at Walmart once and I got kicked out because security kindly knocked on my window and told me I wasn't allowed to park there. You know what I did? I went out, I found like a neighborhood, and then I found a place to sleep. So yeah, I don't get what the big deal is about parking. It's really easy. If you learn what to look for and you're respectful, like, it's not that big of a deal. But for some people, it is. Like, they want to know where they're going to be at night, and the idea that they don't know bothers them. And those people are not going to like living the nomad life. You're going to have limits on your resources. Like, unlimited Wi-Fi is actually possible. There's Verizon has a jetpack now that's unlimited for like $65, I think. And then netbuddy.co is also like not that much more expensive. And I'm looking at both of them. The thing is, like, I'd have to buy the hotspot, and right now I really can't afford buying the hotspot because I'm trying to make sure I have enough gas to get to Women's RTR and RTR. Yes, I'm going to both. So I want to make sure I have enough gas and resources and money to not work long enough to go enjoy both of those events. But the thing is, mostly Wi-Fi is going to be a challenge, because even if you have those hotspots, you may hit a place where the towers aren't good. So now you got to make another investment. Maybe you need to get like a cell booster, which is its own chunk of change. And so like Wi-Fi becomes a limited resource, and it becomes sort of a game to find. And some people are really lucky and really good at it. I have not been. So yeah, but I've had enough Wi-Fi to make my life work. And when I don't have it, you know, I say, Don, what else can you be doing right now that's not accessing the internet? And when I need to find it for work, and when I need to find it for important things, I do. And when it's not that important, and I'm honestly like, you just want to entertain yourself right now, I'll find something else to do. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I'd rather that than obligating myself to a house to also obligate myself to an internet bill. Especially if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to invest in a hotspot. Especially since there are actually some pretty decent unlimited ones now. And there's a third option I'm going to experiment with, but I'll talk about that later. And mail and residency can be challenging because suddenly you're not like... I keep forgetting to check my mailbox. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm really bad at it. If I know something is coming and I have an alert set, then I'll go check. But sometimes I'm like, oh, damn, Don, you haven't checked your mail this week. You really need to do that. So I really just need to set up a reminder and a schedule for that. But Now you don't live at the house where your mail is, so you could be delayed in getting something important, even though you know it's coming. It's not like you're going to come home and there's a mailbox and you open it and your mail's there. Getting mail itself is really easy. I don't know why people act like it's hard. They're like, oh my God, how do you get mail? There are so many options. If you order from Amazon, which everybody freaking seems to do, they have Amazon lockers. If you can't send it to a locker, most of us have friends or family. You can send it to the friend or family, and then you just pick it up from them. You can pay for a private mailbox. You can pay for mail forwarding services. You can pay for things. There are things that are accessible to you. They're a little bit more challenging because it's not as simple as I'm going to type in my house address where I always go anyway, and eventually it'll show up there. So it's a little more challenging, but it's not impossible, nor is it really hard. It's about how frustrating is it going to be for you to not have mail coming directly to an address where you live. It just means now you have a task. It's called, I need to travel to get to my mailbox. Toilets and showers. Even if you have a tank, that tank is a limited resource. So toilets and showers are a challenge in van life. But are you willing to deal with that challenge? Like, if you can only afford a van that doesn't have plumbing, how much are you willing to deal with going to the gym for showers or taking a wet bath or, pooping in a bucket? And when I say a bucket, there are many forms of a bucket. It isn't just like an actual bucket with like the Luggaloo lid, which is an option just as good as anything else. But there are like a bunch of options where you poop into something that you need to figure out how to dump, or you pee into something that you need to figure out how to dump. And how much are you willing to deal with that? The jobs you can do are going to change. Well, not really. You have a choice. Do you want to travel and live in a van? How far do you want to travel and live in a van? Do you want freedom to like bounce whenever you want to? Are you okay with the job controlling your freedom a little bit? Like, I guess it's not freedom if the job is controlling it, but are you okay with your job sort of defining where you go as long as you're going new places? Or do you want to control over where you're going and then be able to work when you get there? Well, and also, like, what are your talents? Like, I could not do social media. Social media is a big job that you can always do as what they call a digital nomad. I could never do that. I can barely keep up with social media for me. There's no way I'd be able to do it as a job. Also, I'm just not that interested in it. Graphic design, artists, photographers, like, they always have the option of, almost always have the option of figuring out a way to make their job travel worthy. Or if that's a goal that you want to get to, then you can start working towards that by living in a van. I'm not a photographer. I'm barely a good camera person. Which is funny because I studied film in school, so I learned a little bit about editing. But otherwise, like, I'm not that great with those type of things. So that being a job that I can go where I want to and just do the job, like, that's not going to be an option for me. However, I am involved in theater. There are theaters all over the place. So one of my big goals for next year is to start trying to get jobs at theaters in different cities and different states that allow me to travel a little bit more and go places I've never been before. I'll stay there for the term of the contract and then I'll leave. And I was going to do a special video about this, but I'm just going to drop this little nugget here because otherwise it's just sitting in my head. I actually did leave my production manager position with the small theater I was working with, and there were a lot of complicated reasons for that. But one of them was it was actually keeping me from other work I wanted to do. And if you're not getting paid a lot to do something, you at least want it to be allowing you to do all the things you want to do. And it reached the point where it was becoming so demanding that it wasn't allowing me to do the other things I wanted to do. And also it was barely supporting me. And I wanted the option to take work other places that I wouldn't have been able to do if I continued to be the production manager of the small theater company. And it wasn't a bad breakup. It was a hard resignation, but I'm sort of taking a gamble into stepping into some heavier freelancing next year, but that's a slight diversion just to say I had to make a decision about how I wanted my nomad life to be, and now that I have this freedom, I'm okay with jobs defining where I go, but I want to be able to go further. And I was becoming limited by my obligation to my job in Oakland or Berkeley. The thing is, we're Oakland based, but there's also like an office in Berkeley, and it's a whole thing. The thing is, I was dealing with a limited circle that I couldn't break from due to my obligations to this job, and I was ready to break from it, so I did. So, yeah. But that's your choices with nomad life, and it's choices I don't think I would have had if, honestly, that roommate situation had worked out. The bad thing is I probably would have kept living in that limitation, even as it became frustrating to be so limited. And now I can literally go anywhere. All I have to do is say, I have housing in that area, even though I'm from blah, 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 because of course my mailing address is in Berkeley right now. So that's just to say mail addresses, residency, and jobs are more challenging when you want to live in a van. I mean, if you live in a city and that's where you are, it's much easier to get a job. Or if you're willing to move to a city and stay where a job is, it's much more easier to get a job. Like flexible jobs that allow you to travel, or lifestyles that allow you to travel, where you have to find work, are more challenging. And that's just the way it is. It's always easier to get signed up for a company and stay there, but also they can drop you at any time. So it's semi-secure as long as nothing breaks. I don't know. And then there is sort of the cheapness of the lifestyle can be a trick sometimes. And it is a cheaper lifestyle than I would be living if I was in a rented room or an apartment right now. Like, it's a cheaper overall month-to-month lifestyle than that. Consider if I was in the situation I was before I started living in the car, which was no car and paying rent. My traveling was severely limited. It was really, really hard to do my job without a car. Like, my life was much better with a car and no apartment than it was with an apartment and no car. Like, overall, even if things had been upsy-daisy and rosy with my old roommate, like, it was much easier to actually do my job on a daily basis having a car and no apartment than it was having an apartment and no car. So yeah. But the problem with that is I'm not a high wage earner. Like, I am struggling to still put money aside every month. I'm crossing my fingers that I can financially get through just taking time off to do RTR and WRTR. And that is hard when stuff like I had to replace all 4 tires recently, which was more money than I was planning on spending within this month, because I was like, I'm just going to like go to the RTR and the WRTR. When I come back, I'm going to work my butt off, and then I'm going to really, really, really push towards savings. And I haven't had an apartment for a long time, but the thing is, I quickly got into a car, which took a huge chunk of money. And then when I realized the situation was going to be more permanent, I flipped it into a van, which cost a bunch of money. And then I had to do, because they were both used vehicles, there were repairs that happened right away, which cost a bunch of money. And so, like, all that extra money that if I had already owned a van, I would have just been banking, went into getting me set up for the lifestyle. And that included buying a power bank. It included all these adjustments I made to make living in the van work. And month to month, I've been fine. But right now, honestly, I'm still living month to month. So when I get hit with a huge expense that honestly wasn't that huge in the grand scheme of car repairs, like, it's still really cheap in the grand scheme of car repairs. But it was a huge hit for me because I didn't have the financial base to handle such a huge hit right away. Now, the good thing is the van's in a really good place. I'm in a really good place. So, assuming I can get consistent work I should be pretty okay to start really building some funds. But those unexpected expenses are going to happen, and you have to plan for that. You can't go into van life. That's a lie. You can go into van life however you want, but you shouldn't go into van life thinking the vehicle is going to be in perfect condition every time you start the car. And you don't necessarily drive more because you're in the van. In fact, I find I'm driving less, mostly because like I can choose my commute in a way I couldn't when I lived in an apartment. When I lived in an apartment or a rented room, I always had to go back to that. Like, job's over, go back to that. You need to go back to the job in the morning. Go, from that apartment to the job. And that distance was going to be what it was. But when I'm sleeping in the vehicle and like my home is like as far away from the job as I want to be, it's really easy to drive less, actually. Because even if you have to move around a lot, you don't have to move far. You can move 5 minutes. You can move 10 minutes. You can go. It's amazing how much people won't pay attention 3 blocks down the block. Like, sometimes I've parked a different place within like a 5 to 10 block radius. Like, it's not huge leaps and bounds you have to make, and my gym is pretty close. I'm Planet Fitness, but my Planet Fitnesses are pretty close, so like when I do Planet Fitness, I don't have to drive that far. And if I don't want to do Planet Fitness, I can do a wet bath in the car. Like, I figured that out. I don't have to go to the gym every single day just to use the shower, and I definitely don't have to go for the bathroom. So because I can work those things out in the van or find ways to make it work close to the van, I don't have to do a lot of driving, so I can reduce the amount of gas I even need to consume in a month. Now, I can't make it 0. There's always going to be unexpected driving, but I can reduce it. I can decide how much I'm traveling. When people are on these massive road trips, it's like they're constantly gas guzzling because they're trying to get like from state to state, state to state, state to state, state to state. Oh, now I'm in XYZ and now I'm in that. And I want to be able to do that at some point, but I can also not do that right now. Still have some micro adventures and not be spending a lot of money on gas. Like, really, how much I want to spend on gas is my choice. Much more so than the randomness of gas and electric in a house. You know what I'm saying? And so it's controllable. Gas is a controllable expense, which should be able to help you with those unexpected expenses. But you have to be in the mentality of, if something big blew in this van, car, RV tomorrow, am I able to take care of it? And how much does that uncertainty like bother you? Like, one of the good things about sleeping in the auto shop parking lot was finding out it wasn't that bad. Like, honestly, it wasn't that bad at all. And I had to sleep somewhere and I had to park somewhere, so why not there? And then in the morning, I just walked in to the shop I was already at. Like, I didn't go home. And that was the difference. Like, I've had, vehicles break down on me when I had homes, and then it's like, okay, now I got the vehicle towed. The tow truck driver's not driving me home. Now I got to figure out how to get home. And I don't have a wife or anybody I can quickly call who's going to come to pick me up. And then even if they did, I'd have to get back in the morning. So let's say I had a theoretical like girlfriend or something, and the girlfriend came and picked me up. Well, what if she has to work in the morning? How early is she gonna have to get up to drop me off back at the car shop before she goes to work? So even if that situation existed, it would still be more inconvenient than breaking down in a vehicle I already live in. And like, going through something like that, even on something minor, which was a blown tire, which still ended up costing me more than I liked, but that's besides the point. Going through something minor like that showed me how much van life does not bother me, because I was in a safe place once the car got towed, which was the auto shop parking lot, and I just went to sleep there. And in the morning I went in the shop, and the shop took care of the problem. So, yeah, there could be more severe situations than that, but it didn't bother me. But if any of this stuff would bother you, if it blows your mind, the idea of like sleeping in a van, and like, honestly, like, the van is cold sometimes too, like because you have to vent for so many things. Like, let's say you get a Mr. Bunny, where you have to vent for the Mr. Bunny, so you're gonna have your window like a little bit open, and most people don't leave it all on all night, because of like, that's a little risky. And honestly, once you're cozy in your bed, it's great. It's just getting up in the morning that's difficult. the point is, you have to look at this stuff. Like, people say, oh, the 10 worst things or the 10 best things about living in a van or RVing full time or any of these things. And the truth is, everything bad has something good attached. And for me, like, it's freedom. And I'm not going to get the freedom going back to sticks and bricks or somehow getting rid of the van and using that money to get into an apartment and then not having a vehicle, because I've lived that life. And like I said, I was happier with a vehicle and no apartment than I was with an apartment and no vehicle. And once I figured that out, there was absolutely no reason to go back to sticks and bricks. Like, so I watched a lot. A lot of people say, oh, like, people are drawn to the negative videos. But I watched the negative videos, honestly, because I needed to hear what they were saying was negative and analyze it for myself. Public restrooms. I've had a weak bladder my entire life. I spent most of my life in public restrooms. And there are times, honestly, I needed to have a pee bucket in my room because there was no way I was going to make it down the hall to the bathroom. And then I had to sneak out. Yes, I'm going to overshare right now. Sneak out of my room and toss that in the toilet, clean the bucket, and then hide the bucket so nobody would see it. So that's an overshare, just to say, like, that part, honestly, didn't bother me. I was already over it. So I might have to pee in a bucket. Got it. No problem. Parking. I used to fall asleep in my car all the time in regular parking spots, just from being exhausted and working multiple jobs and working and going to school and all of that. So the idea of, like, sleeping in my car in some random spot on the street honestly never bothered me until I started thinking about it. And then for a little while I was intimidated and I was trying to find places where people were obviously, like, sleeping overnight. I congregated to a place that had a bunch of RVs on the street at one point, and then I stopped because I realized I didn't have to. I could find these lovely, quiet, safe neighborhoods, pull into a parking spot, a legal parking spot that wasn't in front of anybody's house, and I could go to sleep and it was fine. I have not been a light sleeper for my entire life. Like, I sleep through an insane amount of things. So yeah, when people were like, oh, you're gonna need earplugs and this and that, I was like, no, I won't. Believe me, if I have to go to sleep, I'm just gonna go to sleep. And honestly, I've had the best sleeps I've ever had once I had a bed in the van. Once I had a bed in the van, I was happy as I could be. It really didn't matter what noise was going on outside. It just doesn't bother me. But if you're a person who's a light sleeper, like, that might bother you a lot, and it just doesn't bother me. So yeah, I'm not noise sensitive, and so that didn't bother me. And so I told myself, well, all this stuff that people were defining as negative doesn't bother me. I don't think it would bother me. And almost like the car was this accidental experimental period where all of that got confirmed. It got over-confirmed that I was right. Like, none of the stuff that people say is a negative to van life really bothers me. It's a challenge. Like, definitely, I love when I can sit on a flushable toilet. It's much less of a bother, but when I can't sit on it, it's not like, oh my gosh, it so sucks that I don't have a flushable toilet, that I need to run back to a life where there's a flushable toilet. Like, it doesn't bother me. And like I said, even when I lived in a house, I very rarely had a bathroom to myself. It was usually shared with somebody. It was very rarely convenient. Like, there was never a bathroom, like, in my room that was privately mine. It was always something I had to get to. And because I've had, like, a tiny bladder for my entire life, I'm lying. When I was a small child, I had a basement bedroom and there was a bathroom, like, right there. But anyway, point being, that didn't bother me. Noise doesn't bother me. I can take care of the cold by putting on layers. And the benefit is I get to have the freedom to move towards the kind of life I want to have. And I'm not there yet. In my ideal world, like I said, I would have these contractual theater jobs in different cities and states. And that's even hard in theater, even though there's like theaters everywhere and everything's contractual and everything's short term. Selling yourself to somebody who's looking for somebody to work locally when you don't have a local address is a little bit more challenging, but that is what I'm working towards, and I know it's accomplishable. And I know I have the resume for it. So I need to take the skills I have and turn that into a mobile job. And that will sort of complete sort of where I'm trying to get in this life. And I'm really sad I had to say goodbye to my theater job here because they became my family and I absolutely love that company. But it was time. But the point is, I can't tell you if you're going to like being a nomad. I can't tell you if you're going to like living in a van. I can't tell you if you're going to like be living in an RV. I can tell you what's challenging about it. And then you need to decide for yourself if this is a positive or negative. Like, I hear people talk about like being lonely. But the thing is, like, I am so bad with people. Think about being lonely. I'm like, that wouldn't bother me. I could literally be on the road for weeks by myself and I wouldn't be lonely because I'm really good at keeping my own company, and maybe that comes from being an only child. It's more difficult for me to keep other people's company over long periods of time. Short periods of time are great because I don't have to like think about it too long. I love being around a bunch of people for short periods of time, but for long periods of time I'd rather be by myself. Like, I'm really good at keeping my company. I'm really bad. I get so much anxiety when I have to entertain other people, and it's so relaxing when I'm by myself, you know. And eventually, yeah, I want to be around people for like 20 minutes. And then I'm like, peace. You know, I go somewhere else. So, yeah. I mean, that's what it is. Like, I can't tell you. And I don't think anybody, not only can I not tell you if you're going to enjoy living in a van or RV, nobody can tell you. You need to actually do it. And it may be, you know what, you're a light sleeper, but you throw in some earplugs and you're good. You don't even need to think about it anymore. It may be that you can't deal with public restrooms, but you can hold it, and like you can not drink really late, and you can find a way that you'll never have to like pee in your van, pee in a bucket. But you have to like live it and decide like what sort of adjustments you're willing to make from this conventional idea we have of living in a house in order to not live in a house and to have the freedom of living in a vehicle. And like I said, even if you have an RV and you have a toilet and you have a shower, water is a limited resource once you're in a vehicle. And even if you're mostly staying at RV parks, there's going to be moments in between RV parks, you know. At some point you're probably going to end up on the side of the road and having to just sleep without access to hookups, and you know, so you're gonna have to think about, you know, watering your tanks and using it, and all of those things. Like, it's part of the lifestyle. And is it just like eventually you could see this rolling over into just the cost of the lifestyle? Or is it like, oh my god, that would frustrate me so much. Like, being alone would frustrate me so much. Just seeing my, you know, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend in a small space all the time would get on my nerves. Like, even in large schoolies, I've seen people talk about being on top of each other. You know, even in super big, like, fifth wheels, I've heard people talk about being on top of each other and how frustrating that can get. So if you are in a group, great, you always have people, but what does that mean on the negative side and the positive side? If you're alone and you're traveling, what does that mean on the negative and positive side? And is that okay with you? Like, really examine the type of person you are, because only the type of person you are and what you want can really say if you're going to be happy doing this or not. I can't tell you. Nobody online can tell you. You just gotta examine yourself, decide how much you want to take that risk, and then go do it.